Are we ready then, Ellen?
We should be ready.
Are we still expecting Gary?
Oh, yeah, he did say he was going to be here.
Yes, he did say he'll join us.
Okay, and Stephen's here. Okay.
Perhaps we might want to give just a few more moments for Gary to join. I know he really wanted to be on the meeting.
Oh,
I'm fine with waiting a couple more minutes if everybody.
Oh, he came in. I'll bring him in. He's in
the webinar.
Yeah, I've just promoted him to panelist.
Sorry, everyone. I didn't have the direct link. I was with the attendees. Thank you.
Well, that's okay. We were having some other video and audio difficulties anyhow, so you got here just as it was all straightened out. So the timing's perfect.
So is Garrett Teague supposed to be in the attendees or supposed to be, I see Garrett Teague's in the audience.
Who?
He is in the audience, yeah.
Okay.
I can bring him in. He said he'd be here to help support if we need the technical support.
Okay, are we good to go then?
We are good to go.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to call to order this October 28th, 2020 meeting of the District Advisory Board of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. And we are going to get right into the meat of our meeting. I will turn it over to Chandra Emery so that we can discuss the bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Wilda. Hi, I'm Chandra Emery with Resolution Services here with Amy Herman Chase, and we are facilitating tonight. We also have Clackamas County Administrator Gary Schmidt with us and County Council Stephen Madcore. Before we proceed, I think Gary and Scott Archer would like to share some information with you.
Yes, thank you, Chandra. Hi, everyone. I am Gary Schmidt. I am the Clackamas County Administrator and the District Administrator for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Thank you for allowing me to join your meeting tonight. First, I want to thank all of you District Advisory Board members for your support and service on this, particularly this bylaw effort. I know it's been a long, long journey and you're almost at the conclusion. So thank you so much for your diligent and professional contributions to this work and to our community. I want to just clarify some things that we as staff did in the last week since you got your first notice of this meeting last Thursday or Wednesday. We did have actually earlier this week, Chair Parks, Commissioner Savas, and myself and other staff members met and felt that you had received 3 draft version of bylaws that were very, very confusing. And so with the approval of Chair Parks and Commissioner Savas as the Parks liaison to the district board, we did determine, let's just give you one set of bylaws that we believe had consensus decisions you already made. And then the new updates would be underlined, which had not been decided yet, just to offer you some clarity to help you get to a conclusion to this effort. So that was the decision staff had recommended and that Chair Parks had agreed to earlier this week, which was why you saw the one version just 24 hours ago. So that was meant to help simplify this process for you today. In my opinion, you are so close to being finished with this. And I want to encourage you and with great respect and admiration, encourage you to close it tonight. You can get this done tonight. I know you can. You're so close. You're so close. And I think that with the excellent work of Chandra, our facilitator, you can get over the finish line tonight. With that, though, however, I had suggested to the board of directors last week when they met to extend your deadline of completing this bylaw work. Originally, it was this Friday, October 31st, but because of the wildfires that delayed one of your meetings and your meeting was canceled 2 weeks ago, I'd asked the board of directors to extend your timeline by 2 additional weeks through November 13th if you needed it. In my opinion, you don't need it because I believe you can finish tonight, but if necessary, and if you agree, this is your choice. You have an additional 2 weeks to finish your work But again, I'm hoping you can actually do that tonight. As well, all of your terms expired October 31st, and the board of directors has given you a 2-week extension on that as well through November 13th. Again, your choice if you accept that offer, but the board of directors has given those 2 extensions at my request. So I did want to let you know about that. You're about to hear from Scott Archer in a moment, but this is Scott Archer's last meeting as the director of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. And we'll speak more about you later, Scott, but I want to thank you for your leadership of the district these many years. You've been phenomenal, professional, incredibly courageous in how you have helped support this district. And we all, on behalf of the district, I want to thank you for your service. And the greatest gift, District Advisory Board members, that you could give to Scott is to finalize these bylaws tonight. So with that, I want to thank you. I'm just here as an observer, but if I can help you in your deliberations, I'm here to support you. But with that, I'd like to let Scott have a few words as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I really appreciate those kind words. And yeah, just wanted to take just a very quick moment so you can get into your work, but to make sure that everybody did know this is my final meeting with you, the District Advisory Board as NCPRD Director. In just a few days, I'll wrap up my service with NCPRD. As I think probably a lot of you know, I'm moving on to be the city administrator for the city of Canby. I'm not doing that so that I can leave NCPRD. I'm doing so because it's just a tremendous opportunity. But I really have strong feelings about the North Clackamas Park and Recreation District, and I think we are in a good place in terms of kind of resetting the district with the Happy Valley issue being resolved, and now hopefully getting our DAB or DAC bylaws resolved, and getting the board reformed or the committee reformed, and just moving ahead to do the work of the district, which is really what we all want to do. And I know we've wanted to do that for some time. So I just want to tell you all, thank you for your service. I've enjoyed working with you all individually as well as collectively, and also with those members previously that are not on the DAB any longer. But I really, NCPRD has a special place in my heart, and I will follow the work of the district closely. I'll be just down the road a few miles, and so I'll be nearby. But I do thank all of you for your service and your dedication, and really I want to echo what Gary said, the commitment that you've all made to really stick with this process and finish the DAB bylaws. I think we are very close, and though it's been a bit arduous at times, this is so very important. You all are doing something that lays the foundation for the future of this district. So thank you. And Gary, you said it perfectly. The best going away gift that you could give me would be to come to an agreement this evening on signing off on the draft of these bylaws and sending them over to the board for their consideration. And I would love to be part of that at my last meeting with you. But regardless, you're close, and you're going to get this wrapped up soon. But yes, thank you all so much. And that's enough of my time. You need to get to work tonight. So thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Gary, also. All right, and so just in about 4 minutes, we're going to turn to the bylaws, but I want to say that Wilda, Joel, Grover, Ben, Deborah, Paul, tonight, when your bylaws discussion, I'm going to steer you to focusing on proposals, identifying areas of consensus, and as always, forward motion. And we're going to turn to your discussion now. You'll have about an hour and 15 minutes for that discussion. At around 6:30, we will open it up for public comment and leave it open if needed up to 10 minutes. And then we'll spend the last 20 minutes bringing the meeting to close. And that will include making decisions on the items that Gary brought up about the extensions and what happens next. It's, I think, very likely that you will finish this bylaws work tonight, and we'll need to figure out what happens next in any case. Okay. If you would use your blue hand raise feature. If you aren't able to do that, I will watch for hands when you're voting and asking for a turn to speak. And and then I just want to say before we launch that there's a value in having a good process. That's really important. There's also a value in coming to resolution. And tonight, as facilitator, I'm tipping the scale towards resolution. And with that, I want to turn to the bylaws now. We're going to share screen as needed so that you can be able to see a visual of the bylaws that were distributed on Monday. And so Amy's going to do that. And Amy, I'll just signal to you when we need it, okay? Okay. All right. So to start, Stephen, if you would help by answering this first part. Article 1, 5, 6, 7, and 8. As I reviewed them, it appears to be the changes that appear in those since October 14th are, I think, changes you made that are grammatical and stylistic. And I just wondered if you could speak to that because I don't see any substantive changes. Is that correct?
Hi, Chandra. That's essentially correct. I would agree with that. Folks, what we tried to do was really clean up and tighten up the bylaws and make them consistent internally. For example, we called the district, a capital D, a proper noun throughout. We capitalized chair and chairperson throughout. I put the acronym at the very first time that the entity was identified, and then we just used the acronym throughout for ease and convenience. Article 6 does have a bit more of a substantive change, and that concerns the quorum. The initial language was fairly simplistic. It doesn't change your quorum requirements, but it does spell it out in further detail. Do you want me to talk about that, Chandra?
If you'll hold off for a moment, I want to check in with the group so far, and I do see you, Grover. So far, any questions on what Stephen has shared, and then I'm going to check for consensus that those articles we just referenced have no more discussion needed, and you've already approved them. And so, Grover, did you have a question on what Stephen just shared, or is it on another topic?
Well, I had one on another, but could he just give me the exact numbers again one more time so I can make note? And then I do have other things after that.
Yeah, I'll share that, and I'm going to also share the title. So Article 1, name. Article 5, officers and staffing. Article 6, meetings, quorum and voting and records. And Article 7 is hearing process and procedure. And Article 7 is committees. Now, with the exception of the quorum and voting that Stephen just talked about, they're just grammatical changes. So can you show me by, and does that satisfy what you needed, Grover? Okay, thank you. So will the committee members, by a show of hands, show me the level of consensus for no more discussion needed on those articles? Am I correct about that? Okay, I think everyone has voted in favor of that. Okay.
I want to, if I can, I want to have one on Article 6. This is a suggestion because this is something in my history of being on committees that gets confusing. Sometimes people assume that it's a majority of the people present versus a majority of the members. So technically, Stephen, am I correct that on an 11-member committee, regardless if there's 2 or 3 absences, the quorum is still 6. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner Savas. That's how we have it worded here. What we are proposing a fixed quorum as opposed to a sliding scale quorum, but 6 is required to have a quorum for an 11-member DAC.
Okay, so where is the number 6 spelled out?
It's not. It says a quorum shall be present at the meeting in order for a quorum consists of a majority of all members of the DAC. A vacancy does not affect it. If you want us to write in 6 for clarity, we certainly can.
I would personally prefer that because of just people misunderstanding that it's not a majority of those present. It's actually a majority of the listed number of So if it's going to be, it is 6, regardless, and number 6 is also required to actually have the meeting. So I think it'd be beneficial to actually have the number in there.
Okay, so I'm hearing Commissioner, your proposal. I'm going to put it to the side for a moment and just acknowledge that aside from the quorum and voting provision, this group has agreed that there's no more discussion on the other part. And then Grover, is this yes? Yes.
Yeah, well, you went, I was trying to flip through pages. Would you just give me those articles? I'll write it down and then I'll go through the pages too.
Okay.
So 1 and then
1, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. And I did see you vote before, so I think we had a vote. Am I correct about that, Grover?
Well, I just want to make sure as I was voting, I was going, well, am
Okay.
I clear that I know all of them that are relevant?
Okay.
And I also want to clarify, I am in essence agreeing, and I have very minor things to say about some of those that are included in there. So if this seals my fate to never say, and actually what I want to say is, I would love us to put things into the parking lot for the fully staffed district advisory committee to be able to see that it was in a parking lot, sent to them to be dealt with when they are up and running. And I don't think we need to solve those tonight because I'm actually very committed to having us finished tonight. And I also wanted to say how much I appreciate all the work over the last 16 months with a few breaks for COVID and wildfires and so on and so forth that the people here have put into and how close we are. So thank you all for that. And I am quite hopeful that we will pull it off. And I really want to thank those who met between when we met last and now to bring us up to a place where it's workable. Thank you.
Okay. So Grover, I've made a note of the parking lot item that you just shared. And next we're going to move on to the quorum and voting section. So Stephen has shared on that. And Paul, you have stated a preference for you would like to make a proposal that the number 6 be included in there to clarify what a majority is. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. I think Stephen might be the best person to wordsmith that in. So I'm not going to say his language, but other than the quorum be identified as 6 people. Okay.
And Amy, are you able to share that provision and just wordsmith that, and then the committee can see it and vote on the proposal to make that change? Any other comments on the quorum and voting provision from others? I don't see any. Okay. Can you all see that? Is it large enough?
I can see it.
Okay. All right. So, Stephen, will you call out any suggestions you have? Is that Amy's putting 6 members in there?
At least 6 members are required to constitute a quorum, period. A quorum shall be present at a meeting in order for the DAC to transact business. And I would leave the remainder of that entire provision in there.
And Stephen, just for our edification, not for the bylaws per se, but it is correct that really this DAC cannot meet officially in a capacity unless there are 6 people present. 6. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So, Stephen, is that what you intended? What we see on the screen right now?
I wasn't proposing striking any language. I was just proposing to start with 6 members are required to constitute a quorum.
After the word voting? At the very beginning of the paragraph, or where?
Yeah, I would have started at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if Amy, if you could move 6 members are required to constitute a quorum to the very first sentence, and then not strike any other language. Okay, so while Amy's fixing that, I think I'm gonna, there you go. Okay, that's fine. And then will you do a stop the screen share? Okay. All right, so we'll take a vote to see what the level of consensus is on Paul's proposal to add that first sentence that you just saw. So level of support for adding about the 6 members? See, okay, all of you are supportive of that. Okay, so that passes. All right, and so the next article that I want to turn to is Article 2. Now, Article 2 is new, and Stephen, will you speak to that article? I believe that was a suggestion that came out of your work.
Yes, Chandra. Folks, Article 2 defines the boundary of the district and the sub areas, which essentially is the area of your jurisdiction. It is quite common to include the jurisdictional area within bylaws. Your jurisdictional area is depicted in what we have identified as Appendix A, which is the multicolored map that has been circulating. And so that is new, but it needs to be in there because it identifies things and it cross-references things. I would recommend perhaps that you title Appendix A something, maybe the 2020 NCPRD USC district and sub area map, something along those lines. Just put it on the map itself. As it currently stands, it looks like it says draft on it. So you would want to finalize that and ideally cross-reference it to attachment A and have the title there. It also identifies your sub areas, which are later described in Article 4.
Okay. So any discussion or questions for Stephen on Article 2? I see Wilda.
Yeah, I appreciate the thought to label the map. I think that's really important, especially as time goes by, if things change and boundary areas change. So, you know, I would certainly be in support of what Mr. Madker said and naming the map something like, you know, October 2020, you know, zones or something like that. So thank you.
Other comments or questions?
Mine would only be to, because of confusion of the past zones, is just not use the word zones, only because of history, and I don't want to create confusion. That'd be only my preference. I don't have any other suggestions other than just not using that word, because we had zones of 2 types in the past.
Yeah, that's a good point, Paul. I think just calling them the sub areas is certainly more relevant.
Thank you.
And then I saw Grover.
Right. I just wanted to, since I've had an ongoing interest in tying this world back to what the voters voted for in Measure 3-1, and it defined the area as being unincorporated area east of the Willamette River, north of the Clackamas River, west of the urban growth boundary, and south of the Multnomah County limit, including the city of Milwaukee. And it goes on to say, excluding the cities of Happy Valley and Johnson City and Gladstone. So that was what voters voted for, and I don't know that it benefits anybody losing that tie to the legal grounding that we have for having an NCPRD. And I very much appreciate that it makes that tie.
Okay, and so I think I don't hear you describing what the title should be. I think you're
no.
Okay.
That section though not. It says the boundaries, and the boundaries were defined when they were given to the voters, and they have actually, now that Happy Valley's back out, they haven't changed a bit.
Okay, any other comments on, aside from the attachment reference, any other comments or questions about the substance of Article 2? Wilda.
I guess I would just, I'm mulling this over and what Grover suggested and the way we have it now. And of course, throughout most of this discussion, we've just defined this as sub areas within what we knew to be the map. But I'm also thinking about what if at some point in time, part of the unincorporated becomes a city, then you have to change what you've got in the bylaws. What if Gladstone decides to come in, you've got to change what you've got in the bylaws. And none of those would be what the voters had voted for. I'm actually fine with the way it's written, but I understand where Grover's coming from and wanting to tie it to those words. But I think I defer to Mr. Radker on that. I think the ballot words are prescriptive, and perhaps maybe the ballot measure could be an attachment to reference back to.
Okay. Stephen, do you have thoughts on what Wilda shared?
Certainly could do that. I'm curious if there's a question about what the district boundaries actually are. I don't think so, but I will point out, I think it's sufficient as it is, but if you wanted to tie it into the ballot measure, happy to do it. I don't think it's going to cause any complications or confusions.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would be supportive of that. That's Article 2 says two things. It defines the boundaries of the district, and secondly, it defines the boundaries of the sub areas. So that it's a two-part article there. So having the original language in there has a little bit more positivity to it, because when you read that, it's a reminder of the withdrawal. I'd rather, if the ballot language happens to be accurate from 30 years ago, so I wouldn't have any quarrel putting that back in.
Are we sure that that is in fact the case though? Because Happy Valley came in, then they expanded, and then they withdrew. Did that redraw, their recent withdrawal, did that redraw some of the originally established boundaries?
Nope, it was defined by the unincorporated area minus Happy Valley, minus Johnson City, minus Gladstone, and that still is north of the Clackamas River.
How about we table Article 2 and let me consult with the lawyers that were involved with the withdrawal? I know that there's some language in there about some pieces of property that were subject to city jurisdiction and within the district. I have no objection to it, but I want to make sure that we're not including areas that have been withdrawn by the legislation that occurred as a result of that.
I'd be very willing to let that go, as you said, sir, and have us approve it as is, and put that in the list of things for the parking lot to be dealt with later.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's see where we are on Article 2. Number 1, on labeling the attachment. Wilda, do you feel comfortable making a proposal on what the name would be? Reference 2020. Is there a simple name that would, that you want to put forward? You're muted. Oh, you're muted. There you go.
I just think something really simple like sub-area groups as determined October 2020. I mean.
Okay. Sub-area groups as determined October 2020. Scott, I see your hand.
I think maybe just another suggestion along those same lines, but I've kind of written something here that I was suggesting we just call that document NCPRD Boundaries and Advisory Committee Sub Areas Map, because it's all encompassing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we would date the map according to the most recent version of that. So we could call it October 28th, 2020, because that's when it's been discussed tonight or something like that. So again, NCPRD Boundaries and Advisory Committee Sub Areas Map. And that might even be referenced to that title in the Article 2, perhaps, just to make it very clear.
Yeah, and I think the good thing about that too is that in that map that we would be including, it has all the population numbers in it and how many representatives each area has. So that that makes really good sense to me.
Okay, so Wilda, do you want to propose what Scott just suggested?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and I think
let staff determine its name.
Okay,
yeah.
So it'll be named and staff will determine that. Level of support for Wilda's proposal? See everybody. Grover, are you weighing in?
Sure.
Yes, okay. Okay, good. So that's resolved. And then second is whether to leave the language as drafted that you see here, or table it and have Stephen do some consulting and considering. So first, who's in favor of leaving the language as it is written right now? See, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so I think that passes, that it will stay as is. Okay.
I'd actually rather you said it a different way, that I'd be willing to accept it as it is and put it to further thing onto the parking lot, which is what I proposed, which is not conflicting with what the consensus is here, but your statement changed it.
My statement
I'm fine
changed
with it. Yeah, I will take it. I'm willing to support having it be as it is,
yes,
with caveat that the staff research that Stephen Madcourt suggested will be listed on a parking lot for the DAC when they finally do get seated.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. I'll accept it just like it is.
Okay,
no
gotcha.
You include that in the statement that you asked us to vote on.
Okay, all right. Thank you for clarifying. I made a note of that. Okay, and so next we are going to go to the remaining article, which is Article 4. And that is got many parts, and it's covers membership. So let's see.
Did you skip over 3 intentionally?
There wasn't anything changed in 3.
3 was, let's see, 3. Let me look here. I think I meant to include 3 right in that grouping because there were no changes that I saw. Is that correct? Stephen, do you recall any changes to that?
Very minor ones, Chandra, a little bit more of an active voice. And also it did include the word recreation before facilities under purpose. It said development of parks and facilities. I said parks and recreation facilities. So recreation is added, giving the group a bit broader and more inclusive, purview. Other than that, just grammatical and stylistic.
Okay. Yes. And so thank you, Commissioner. I had intended to include that in the first tranche. Can I see by show of hands, Article 3, are you accepting of it as it's written?
Well, I actually had a comment.
Oh, sure.
And so I'm willing to, I don't think it's a big deal. It's just a technical thing. And being that we have the district administrator here and legal counsel under sub C, which talks about the budget committee, I just want to make sure that language is there is consistent with state budget law, because the North here, if you look at the last sentence, here, this is where the conflict lies. The last sentence reads, the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation Budget Committee will then submit recommendations to the board of directors. Well, actually, the board of directors is 5 members of a 10-member budget committee. So there's some overlap there. So that language is not consistent with state budget law. So I don't think it's anything for us to worry about. I'm willing to accept whatever changes are made just to make it consistent with state budget law. It won't affect anything we're doing, but that paragraph does not read correctly.
Okay, so that's noted in the parking lot, if you will, and I think you're saying, but you're accepting Article 3 as written for tonight's purposes.
Yeah, and I just thought that we should, whatever language we have in there for the final bylaw ought to be consistent with state law.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. And so moving to Article 4. Can I see a show of hands if it's necessary or helpful to show this on the screen as we go? if you'd like it to be shown on the screen, will you indicate so? Okay, I'm seeing that you don't need that. Okay. Okay, so starting at the top, there's an underlined sentence, and I believe that's either from Commissioner and or Chair Parks. Is that right?
I think that was, yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to do for our process is treat all the changes that are indicated in Article 4 as proposals that somebody from the committee will bring. And if one of you would bring that as a proposal and provide some rationale.
Well, okay, you talk about under membership. So the underlying language is what we had worked on in December, January, and February. I appreciate everyone on the committee accepting that principle of trying to make sure we had cultural diversity with the district. So I think that's a big win for all of us. I appreciate the language being included in there, and I think that's something we should strive to do. So
I agree. Yep.
Okay, any questions or discussion? I'm hearing language of agreement. Okay, all right. So your support for Commissioner Savas's proposal. Okay, Deborah, are you? Well, okay, you did vote. Okay, all right, good. So that passes. Next to subset A, and I think maybe Stephen. This is a draft. This language is a change from what was in on December 14th, but really I think reflects what you've already agreed to. I think so. Is there any need for discussion on that? Anyone have questions about sub A?
Nope. Yeah, it's good to go.
Okay, good. All right. So does that show of hands if that you're ready to pass that section? Okay. Okay. So that passes. And then the next section that I think needs to be addressed is subsection C.
Yeah, so I asked to have something put in that had more specificity to it about when, and I'd also like to make a suggestion on a word change in this before we have further discussion about it. The change says, and may be revisited. It should say, and will be revisited. So it's about the composition as depicted in attachment A, and we've all had discussion about this in the past, that it would benefit all of our different areas to make sure that we stay on parity with each other, to revisit and adjust in every 5 years, or in the event of significant district boundary changes or major population changes, or at the discretion of the DAC.
I see Deborah.
Yeah, so I think
I have a question about every 5 years, because if we did it every 5 years and people are appointed every 4 years, then we've already appointed people who don't reflect the change in demographics. Or am I missing something?
Would you suggest that it be looked at every 4 years then?
Yes.
I mean, I'd be fine with that too. It does need to have, I think, some specificity, and that will happen. And waiting till census is way too long.
Right, I agree with that. But if we do it every 4 years, then that gives time for an adjustment before new members are appointed.
Yeah, keeping in mind that once we get into a rotation system for new members, some will be up for reappointment in every 2 years. There will be people up for reappointment.
Right, but if we do it 5 years, then we've missed that cycle.
Then you've missed it, exact, yeah. And I'm fine with 4 years. And I don't know about the others. But.
Joel, did you have a comment? I saw you nodding. Maybe,
Well,
maybe.
I think Wilda kind of touched on, I was just thinking about staggered appointments and how there would always be overlap. But I'm fine with 4 years myself. That doesn't matter to me.
Okay, and I see you, Grover.
The only thing I'm fine with it too. I don't even need to, but I want to point out that the last line says, or at the discretion of the DAC. So we could do it whenever we wanted to. So I think it's covered by all bases if there was a need to do it at any other time. And I appreciate your idea is that you'd like to have it be at a set time, just as a mandatory marching order, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, any other comments before we check for consensus?
I'm going to comment, Chandra, on the, if we change it to will be revisited, you might want to consider adjusting the, if it reads like that, it would say will be revisited and adjusted every 5 years. It compels this group to adjust something. You could say may be adjusted every 5 years. Because
will revisit and may be adjusted. Is that what you're suggesting? That's great. Because you could revisit it and it doesn't need any readjustment. So, correct. Sure. Yeah, if you can wordsmith that.
Will be revisited and may be adjusted every 5 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Is everyone clear? If you're not clear on the language, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll check for consensus. Okay. Okay. So what's the level of consensus for sub C? And Deborah,
we get 2 hands.
Well, is the wording for 4 years?
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Said 5.
Okay. So let's consider Deborah's proposal that it's Wilda's proposal with 4 instead of 5 years. All right. And the level of support for that. Okay. Yeah. 4 years. Okay, good. Grover, are you in on that?
Yeah, he's got 2 hands.
Oh, good. Okay, you've got 2 hands. Good. Okay. All right. And so next is sub D. And I believe the substantive proposal is that underlined language in sub D. Who will speak to that and make a proposal on it?
I can speak to that if I may.
Sure.
As I read this earlier before this change was made, I noted that that it spoke to Milwaukee's A1, but it didn't speak to the Milwaukee Center, which also is treated differently than the 8 unincorporated positions. So that was why that was added. And that's the part that was added. So now it says, other than those appointed under A1 and A6. Okay,
any questions on what Wilda is suggesting? Any comments? Grover?
Well, I didn't understand because I think what you just said is what I'm reading. So am I reading something different or am I confused?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, I'm reading what was sent out and it says other than those appointed under A1 and A6 above and who will,
yeah,
that's what it says.
But that was new language. Before that, it only had A1 in it. So we added an A6, which is the community centers.
I know in the packet of those 3 bylaws that came out earlier, I noticed that too. That was on my list to bring up. So I'm glad it was addressed when they sent out this revised.
Right. But it is in the revised the way.
Yeah, it's in here. Correct. Yes.
No problem.
Yes,
no problem.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm reading you what's actually been presented to us.
Great.
Okay, thank you both. Yeah. All right, and it looks like we have 2 more sections, I think, to go through and consider. Next is sub E, and that is entirely new. Am I correct? That's not been in a draft before.
That's actually what we agreed on in the last meeting at the time we met, just for what it's worth, at least the beginning of it is.
Mm-hmm. We didn't craft that language. So the language is new, the discussion is not.
Great.
Okay. All right. And who's in a position to propose that this be
I'll
considered?
I'll go ahead and do that. I guess so that's on me. So yeah, this is the language that basically fulfills, I believe, what we discussed, and if there, and it says clearly in there, if there is no sub area committee at the time, then it defaults to the nomination language we had discussed last week, which speaks to, from a committee composed of 2 members of the Clackamas County staff, 2 members of the DAC, and 2 members of community planning organizations or community groups located within the particular sub area. So that's my proposal.
Okay, and I just want to check to make sure before considering the language itself, is there a consensus that you reached agreement about including this language in general? So can you show by hands if you believe you did agree to having a provision like this in the bylaws?
Well, that's kind of hard to say because I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure I would really even agree the way you worded it, that Sean.
No.
Okay, sorry about that. So help me out.
I think it's fair to say that.
So if you would hold for a moment, Commissioner, and I want to let Ben have a.
I think I raised the question about how this would actually happen, and the feedback that I got is that that's pretty detailed, and we'll deal with that later. And so I guess this is later. I like the wording of it regardless, but I don't think we agreed on how this would be worded. So
correct.
It seems pretty. It seems like it would work from my standpoint.
Okay. And
that's one of the questions that I had. It's, you know, who's the authority to help, you know, reappoint the sub areas when there aren't really, you know, like city councils and whatnot in some of those areas.
Okay. Other comments? Joel, I see you.
I guess my question, and I think the wording's pretty adequate also, but in reading it maybe over and over again, I'm trying to kind of figure out, in the absence of a sub area, whatever we did, however you worded it, in the absence of that official sub area nominating process where CPOs or other community groups, this would be comprising the other, interviewing panel. Since there aren't active CPOs in every area, I guess I'm wondering how we're defining community groups. If certain community groups supersede a CPO, I don't know how that would work. So I guess I just need some clarification on that. I know I kind of jumbled that up, but trying to read and think at the same time.
I see you, Grover.
Does that make sense? I know it just kind of fell out of my mouth, but that part of it is where I'm just trying to sort it out in my head. Maybe it's because of a lack of familiarity, but I'm kind of skipping ahead, assuming there's not a sub-area nominating committee, which it doesn't sound like there really is in any of these areas, other than I guess Milwaukee, the city of Milwaukee, and then the community centers. How does the CPO and or whatever a community group would be defined as kind of interact on their involvement in the nomination or the interview or appointment process?
Okay, so I saw Grover and then Wilda.
Yes, well, I'd like to speak to that because in truth, this is really at the crux of so much of what we've been bringing ourselves up to here. And I'd like to make note that there's more than 20 people on this call who have signed, we have 220 people who have signed a petition supporting this process that we will select in the unincorporated areas, our own representatives. And if we fail to do that, then in fact, there is a backup. And the point of the backup is to actually have people from within the area that have some sort of participation. And this is only if it fails to do it under the first method. Then you have that as a backup. It is still going to have 2 staff people. It's still going to have 2 members of the district advisory committee. And then there will be representatives from the local area gathered by one of those 2 methods. One is the CPOs. And by the way, I want a correction from, I was ignorant before now, but I've been informed that there are CPOs in all 4 non-Milwaukee sub areas. So, so they do exist, and they are active currently according to multiple measures. So that's the part I want to get, that it is important that the people who are in the unincorporated area have a say in their own representation. And if they fail to meet the idea of having a proper way to come to that, then there's a backup. And in that backup, at least there will be some representation from the local area.
Can I add just a follow up, I guess, and that makes perfect sense to me, Grover, I guess, and I understand what you're saying. It sounds like there's quite a few folks that whatever petition you're referring to have an interest in this selection process. How do they define themselves, or how do they fit into the sub areas? Is there a formalized, where's the accountability, I guess, there other than the address?
Well, they live there, and it is the accountability. And so what are the accountability for the people who live in the city of Milwaukee and vote there? Well, they live there and then they vote there, but they voted for a city council, and then they're the ones who decide, et cetera. It is a one-off, but the real focus here is to get, and there's a lot of movement besides ours, to get people in the unincorporated area involved in looking at their own future and playing a part in it. And so thank you for that question. And go ahead, Paul.
If I might just follow up with Joel, what you said accountability, and is there anything else besides residents? Do you have an idea about that?
No, not necessarily. I mean, what Grover said makes perfect sense, and I mean, I would agree with that. Maybe accountability isn't necessarily the right word. I don't know exactly. I mean, the pool of folks he's talking about, I don't know where they're all from or what they represent necessarily, but how do they come together and make this decision, I guess, is the accountability factor I'm kind of getting at.
Okay,
where does it come from? There's got to be some sort of authority, I guess, built in there.
Okay, and then Commissioner.
Yeah, so I think, Joel, your earlier comment about are you making sense, and you are, so I understand your point, so thank you for bringing that out. And so in the default language, if there is no sub area, you know, there are, you know, watershed groups, there are committees of the fire district, there's the fire district, there's the water districts, there are community groups and active citizens everywhere in the sub areas. So those could be default. So you could possibly add other community groups / jurisdictions possibly in that area, if that got a little bit more comfort around it. Our district administrators here, and Grover kind of alluded to it, we've got a lot of buy-in right now on the unincorporated folks about having some comfort level that the people that are representing them are truly selected as best as possible by them. So we're in the process of trying to restructure the sub area advisory committee model that was originally in place 30 years ago. So we're working on that so that we will have a structure that will, and if Gary wants to speak to this, it'd be the appropriate time, but I would say that official aspect of that and accountability will be embedded in the sub area language, how that comes about. But I did want to speak to what was discussed and accurately and presented by legal counsel at our last meeting that we had, and that was, you know, it's not really for us to determine how Milwaukee, for example, or even how the Milwaukee Center process goes through appointing their folks. So in kind, you know, we really can't really extend that responsibility to other groups, but there will be structure around the sub area advisory committee model.
That clarifies it perfectly. It sounds like it's a work in progress, but it sounds like there's something actually being worked on there. So I appreciate that. Thanks, Paul.
Yep. Thank you, Joel.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions? Do you want to, Commissioner, do you want to propose passing subsection E then as drafted, or are you ready to do that?
I do propose submitting that as drafted.
Okay, and support for the proposal? Yes, okay, so it passes. Okay. I think you all are showing off. All right, sub F. My thought on this was if Stephen, I believe there might be, it's just some language. I noticed this, some consolidation and languaging. So would you speak to this section?
Correct. This was kind of scattered throughout the multicolored bylaw section. So we consolidated it under here. Vacancy occurs when a member dies, resigns, is removed, or has more than 3 unexcused absences. Folks seem to think that that was important. So I retained that in there. Or I included is no longer a member of the district. That would make them ineligible, and that was missing. So I included that in there as well. The remaining language is consistent with what you had beforehand of what is defined as an unexcused absence. And it goes to, like, you have to, other than an emergency, you have to give somebody on district staff notice that you are not going to be there. And it says eventually that vacancies will be filled in the same manner as initial appointments for the remainder of the unexpired term. So relatively consistent with a lot of vacancy processes for positions in which residency is a requirement of eligibility to serve on that particular board.
Thank you, Stephen. Questions and comments?
I'm good with it.
Okay, all right, I see nodding and thumbs. Okay, so voting to pass? Yes, it passes. Okay.
I think we're on the verge of a sweep here, Chandra.
I think so. All right, so
we all want to give Scott a present before
yes.
he leaves, right?
Yes. Okay.
Give him the gift of completion.
All right. So just to verify, by my account, you've approved these bylaws, with the exception of some parking lot, items noted.
I will point out that Article 9 has a provision that says the DAC may not amend Article 4 membership in any way that differs with the requirements of the IGA, NCPRD in the city of Milwaukee. I don't have the IGA with me right now, but my recollection was that these amended bylaws would differ from the IGA, so that will need to be updated with the district and the city of Milwaukee. Not in a significant way, but in a way that you still want them both to align themselves.
Okay.
It shouldn't hold up these bylaws, but it will require subsequent effort by the district itself and the city.
Okay. So at this point, Chair Parks, do you want to speak to where we are in this work? You're muted.
Ian. It seems to me that we have completed what the Board of County Commissioners asked us to do. There are some final steps, and as Mr. Madker noted, got to go through, of course, the district board as well as to the city of Milwaukee, especially as it relates to that section. But we've had many discussions there also, and I don't personally, I'm not going to vouch for everybody else, but I don't see any issues, any problems. I think the Board of County Commissioners will be pleased with the work that we've done. I think the residents of the district will be pleased with the work that's been done so that it is as fair and equitable to all parts of the district as possible. So I think we did a good job. Everybody was very diligent and very passionate about this. And I don't think we could have done it without your good facilitation services also, Chandra. And Amy, thank you for all the work you did on it. And Stephen, having you, if we'd had you a year ago, we might have gotten through this. A year later.
Always available.
Yes.
No, seriously, it's been very beneficial to have you, and to have Gary Schmidt in the room with us also, I think has been beneficial. So I know everybody has just put in a ton of energy and enthusiasm and, quite frankly, mental capacity and everything else into this. So I'm glad we've reached this point.
Congratulations.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a question, and maybe it's a question maybe to Gary and a question to maybe Wilda, and that is the next steps for the commissioners or the board of directors to approve these, as well as the city council. So one question to Wilda and one to Gary.
So are you talking about as far as timing and process, or what does the city need? I'm actually going to confer tomorrow with, or as soon as possible, with Kelly Brooks, our assistant city manager, to find out just what we need from Clackamas County. We had talked in the past about having a letter that the city of Milwaukee would approve the concepts of that letter, which would include the information about the membership of the DAC and that type of thing. So we will not have a meeting the first week of November. So I know that it at least will not be until the third Tuesday in November, but I will check with city staff to see just what they need. And I'm sure they will be conferring with Steve Archer and Gary Schmidt and whoever else they need to on that to get things in the right order too. I don't know if the board of directors comes first or if the city council comes first. So they can figure that out.
If I may, Chair, and I'll ask Stephen or Scott to correct me, I would suggest the order is as follows. First, this group finalize these bylaws with a vote, which I hope you'll take here shortly. Then it would go to Milwaukee to give indication that on the surface you are good with these bylaws. Then the board of directors of NCPRD would formally adopt the bylaws, and then we do the IGA to finalize the agreement. Stephen, would that be the correct order in your opinion?
That's a great plan, Gary.
Yeah. Okay.
Suggestion.
Yeah. Okay. So to your point, I guess I've just been thinking, oh, we're done. We did this. But what I hear you say also is that as a group, we need to have a motion to accept the revised bylaws and a second and pass that motion, correct?
Yeah.
So
I
move up, which isn't very legal, but
so I'll go ahead and make the motion that we approve the bylaws as amended tonight.
Second.
Okay, who is it? Ben, was that you that seconded? Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the bylaws as amended this evening. Is there any further discussion on that? Hearing, yeah, Grover?
Well, I just wanted to include that, and it doesn't have to go in this motion, but I do want to make sure that the parking lot stuff does get moved forward, and it's not part of the motion, but it's often.
Right. And they have said for sure that they will make sure that that occurs. So,
thank you.
Okay. So the motion is to accept the bylaws as revised this evening. And I guess, and pass them on to, the Board of County Commissioners. So no other discussion. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand for aye. Are there any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Yay.
Woohoo. All right. May I ask then, Mr. Schmidt, since we were able to finish this evening, there will not be a need for a further meeting. Mr. Archer and Mr. Schmidt, would that be correct? And other than that, we're good with the work that we've done and passing it on at this point, right?
I'll start, but I'll ask Scott to finish this answer. So the board of directors only authorized you to complete the bylaws. That was your single item of business to conduct, which you have now done. And now we need to get those bylaws formally approved and the IGA completed so that you can reform and do your business. So Scott, do you agree, or do you have a correction to that?
I agree. That's my understanding as well.
Okay. With that, I think it's time to open it up for public comment. And Ellen, are you going to be facilitating that, or is somebody else?
Wilda, just a moment, just a quick, I apologize. Just the question about the extension of the terms, is that important to resolve?
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
okay.
So the terms, would they then end on October 31st as originally planned?
So the board of directors has extended all the terms till November 13th. So you can volunteer. It's up to you, members. You could say you reject that, but the board has already made that decision. So okay. Your terms will be through November 13th.
But we won't have another meeting in that time frame, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
No more meeting. Correct.
Okay.
Well, darn, I was actually hoping we could meet every night for the next 2 weeks.
Paul. Grover.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I agree that there's not likelihood of this meeting, but I still don't know what's going to happen in the next unfoldment. So we still have that time, and only 2 of you will carry past that time. So if anything needs to be done, it needs to
and I guess my hope is that the county and whatever in the subgroups would move forward timely to select the new people to serve on the DAC. So yeah. Okay, great. Now shall we open it for public testimony? 3 minutes each. Ellen, are you going to also time if necessary?
I will do that. And I also have some written emails that came in that I would be happy to read whenever that's appropriate.
Okay.
So right now, if anyone wishes to comment from the attendees, please put your hand up and we will bring you in to talk. Oh, I see one. Baldwin.
Oh, Baldwin. I haven't seen him in
bringing him in.
Good.
Baldwin, can you talk?
He's still muted.
There you go.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for working so hard to get this done. And it's interesting that you were able to finish this in less than an hour almost. So thank you. I live in Oak Grove for all the work that you've done in getting the bylaws updated. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Baldwin. It's nice to hear from you.
Thank you, Baldwin. Now we have Thelma Hagenmiller. Thelma, you should be able to speak to us.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can you speak up just a little bit? It's pretty light.
Okay, I just want to say the same thing Baldwin said, that it's been a long process and I'm glad to see it's going. It's going to be interesting now to see who continues on the selection of the people that you've got that have applied for the new DAC. And I'll continue following it as I've done for many, 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 many years. Thank you.
Thank you, Thelma.
Thank you.
Oh, it's always good to hear from you, ma'am. Okay, Ellen, is there anybody else in the audience to speak, or do you want to?
No one else in the audience has raised their hand.
Would you like to please?
No, I'm sorry. There just is one now. Lindsay Freeman.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Just barely, Lindsay. Any chance you could speak up or speak closer or something?
I think so. Is that better?
Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I enjoyed the meeting. This is my first time listening in, and I think y'all are doing a wonderful job. And I just wanted to say I live over in Area 3 and have been talking with many of my neighbors about the Justice property for several years. And it seems like it might be the time soon to take some action on that. So I'm excited about the prospect of kind of new possibilities. And I love the idea of these different boundaries. I think this will be really impactful and really give a great avenue for people to have their voices heard. So great job, and hopefully you'll hear from me soon as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Appreciate you coming forward tonight. Okay.
Thank you. We have now Carolyn Oley. I hope I pronounced that right. Carolyn, we should be able to...
Yep.
Perfect.
I just wanted to say thank you all for your service. Our CPO, Sunnyside Westmount Scott CPO, appreciates it. And we look forward to talking with you some more about, like the other lady said, the Justice property. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate your words.
I do have a question, and it might be for Paul. At one time, it seemed like last year, we were told that that Justice property was going to be designated for a fire station. Do you remember anything about that?
I do not, but maybe Scott would be able to best answer that question.
Aha.
Yeah, I think I can help out a little bit. Carolyn, there was talk in years prior with Clackamas County Fire District 1 about the possibility of doing some type of a joint project wherein there might be a fire station and a park on or at that property. Those talks have quieted. I think the fire district has moved on from that, for the most part. Nothing official was ever done, or there was no official agreement, but it was it was being explored. And I think for now that conversation has probably ended, or at least is kind of on hold. So I don't suspect that that's going to be anything going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other people in the audience who would like to speak? Shall I then, Chair Parks, go ahead with reading the...
Yes, would you please read the other communications that we've received? Thank you.
There are 5 of them. One is a little lengthy, so I will be patient with me, please.
Okay.
The first one is from Michael Hoey. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, on Fair Oaks Avenue. He says, as a longtime resident of the Oak Grove neighborhood, I would like to voice strong support for local communities choosing their own representatives to serve on the NCPRD. This would be an important move forward in providing future park services that match specific needs of the communities served. Many thanks for your hard work on behalf of our parks. Then we have a message from Lisa Nowak. As an Oak Grove resident, I would like to express my support for the communities in each NCPRD zone to choose their own representatives to the DAC (DAB). Our parks mean a great deal to me. Then we have, this one is the longer one. It is from Jan Carruthers. Unfortunately, I can't attend the NCPRD meeting tonight. I am writing you to express my opinion that the members of the District Advisory Board / Committee should be representatives of the unincorporated 4/5 of the district residents and taxpayers by population areas, just as the City of Milwaukee selects the members who represent its citizens. Then their representatives report back to their citizens through their Parks Advisory Board and potentially to their other leadership groups like their City Council. I believe the rest of the community and the NCPRD will be much stronger if the rest of the members are also selected locally and report back to the community areas selected then. I am a strong supporter of the NCPRD, of the initiative that formed it, of having more parks in general, more equitably distributed resources throughout the district, and naturally in underserved, unincorporated areas. Therefore, it is apparent to me that more citizen involvement is essential, and of having a say in the use of district resources require opportunities for unincorporated community citizens to be able to select who is on the district advisory committee will create a closer relationship of all the citizens with NCPRD and its activities. Then she has some sections with headings on them. The first heading is increasing community awareness. Consequently, I am greatly in favor of a citizen-based selection process for selecting the people who represents them. One of the many benefits of that system will be to ensure a process whereby those representatives will report to and be accountable to their communities to communicate the work of the NCPRD more widely to their citizens. Next heading is creating a more representative Citizens District Advisory Committee. While it's true there is one NCPRD, I believe it will be a more effective district if members of the community participate more broadly in recruiting and sending responsible community advocates to the District Advisory Board / committee. And involvement requires support structures. By identifying skillful community leaders, a citizen has a representative from their own area to talk with. If everything is handled by district staff, it may not feel like community action, and it actually can feel like county action. And since the county leadership is always encouraging more community involvement and seeking to increase trust, this is one way to accomplish both: to have district representatives selected by the citizens of geographic areas, most likely through a community caucus process or something similar. I appreciate the value of professional staff input and suggestions for what make effective advisory board members. We have committed, diligent staff. I just do not think it is appropriate for county or district staff to have the ultimate selection power over the composition of the district advisory board, who will be recommending the use of resources and setting project priorities for years to come. This is a little awkward. I think I've hit my 3 minutes for this person. So I don't know if I'm supposed to stop myself or keep reading. There's probably about halfway through the letter. Chandra, any thoughts?
I think I was going to defer to Chair Parks. I'm not familiar with what's the protocol is.
In the essence of time, how about if you emailed that out to all of the DAC members and we had our own opportunity to look at it and read it? I think that would suffice.
I think that's an excellent idea. And you have the theme and the tone of it, and that remains. So I'll read the last two now.
Yeah, I think that'd be fine.
The one is from Marilyn Gottschall. This is to urge you to support the selection of community members on the Parks Board by community members. Park lovers have a deep concern for the maintenance, amenities, and planning for park usage. I am currently involved with an ad hoc community group that supports River Villa Park. And on behalf of that group, I urge you to develop a process whereby the community has adequate representation when decisions are made about parks. We have so few parks in Oak Grove, we simply want to see them be as good as they can be. And last one is from Molly Little. As a resident of Oak Grove, I support the idea that there be a proportional representation on the NCPRD Citizens Advisory Board from both the incorporated and unincorporated areas. Many thanks. And that's the emails.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate all that. You probably, about got hoarse reading all those out. So thank you for that. All right, we'll now close the public comment and we'll end the meeting with director reports if there are any. And I think there certainly should be. And if there's anyone who might want to say a word to Scott tonight, this would be a good time to do that also. But let's start with Scott.
Thank you, Chair Parks, for the last time. I don't have anything new, but again, I want to thank you all. This has been a tremendous meeting, and thank you for granting my going away wish. And you did it in very, very quick time. So wonderful. And I know you're all happy as well, so you don't have to continue meeting. You've done tremendous service. So I thank you for that. The great thing is now this newly structured DAC will get reappointed, or it will get reformed, I should say, and that new group can get to work on the true work of the district. And we have many projects that have been either in process or need guidance to move forward. There is a lot of excitement around things that we have in our future. As we just heard from some of the public comments, there are issues that we need to address where there are shortfalls in the district, but this is the true work of the advisory committee. And I'm just so thankful that we can now move to that phase of getting that reformed and just really truly working forward. And then I think the last thing I would say is, you probably all hopefully know this, but NCPRD has an outstanding group of people on the staff that want to work with you and work with the future DAC group, and have really been waiting anxiously for this process to wrap up so that this good work can move forward. So you that will continue on the DAC, or whether you do or not, you'll probably be interested citizens, can look forward to working with a tremendous group of professional people that really just want to do good work for the district, and will do so working closely with this citizen group. So I'm happy for that. And so I could not have had a better final DAB, now DAC meeting. So thank you again.
Oh, good. Would anyone like to add any comment to this evening? Joel?
I just wanted to quickly thank Scott for all of his amazing work, and definitely his support of the Milwaukee Center and all the great work we're doing over there. But it's been a pleasure to know you, and I'm excited for your future opportunities in Canby, and I'll keep an eye out for you on the ferry.
Good. Well, Gary, I certainly echo all the thanks for this evening. It's been a real pleasure working with you. I know it's been through some really crazy times. I mean, I think you came in just about the time we started the Happy Valley Exodus, and there was all of that, and then we were on hiatus. And thank you for continuing to meet with me through all that time. I appreciate it. And then this year, gosh, I don't know what else could go wrong this year, but we've weathered it all. And Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Wilda. Scott, congratulations on your new position. That's huge. We'll miss you. Appreciated your patience and hard work, not just through the bylaws, but really the last 3 years. We have been through a lot. Yeah. And I know that the DAB's been on hiatus, but folks, while the DAB's been on hiatus, our staff of NCPRD have not been on hiatus. They have been hardworking. We've had a lot of difficult legal challenges along the way. It's been rough. It's been tough. Yeah. So I appreciate you hanging in there, Scott, and all the other staff. Appreciate your support during those periods of time. I do want to say that we got to this geographic representation, and I'm happy happy we're there. But I think what we've all said, I've heard it from Wilda, I've heard it from Grover, I heard it from a number of us, we all represent the entire district. And I think it's something that we did years back prior to Scott's role, prior to actually a lot of us, all of us except myself, I think. But way back several years ago, well, actually, Wilda, you were part of that group. We went for tours at all the park facilities in the district. We got on a bus. I think it took 2 or 3 different trips, days and trips to do that. But I learned a lot about. Yeah, I did too. I learned a lot about the needs. I saw where the amenities and assets were, up to snuff and in good shape and order. They look beautiful. And I saw some areas where we have parks that are just either fields or get mowed occasionally, or some of them are just kind of more natural space with very little amenities. So yeah. I think it'd be good in the future for the next seated DAB to take the tours at some point when it's convenient, post-COVID, after COVID's behind us. But I think that would really be important. I made a note of something else, but anyhow, I'll just stop there and just say just my gratitude to all the members who stuck it out. Ben, Joel, Deborah, Grover, Wilda, you know, and our previous members as well that went through there, even and those from Happy Valley and so on. We've been through a lot. I've seen a lot over the 10 years. I've seen, you know, different faces around the table at the DAB. So I look forward to a new day, and I look forward to seeing these sub-area groups come together and get some more representation and concerns. And I also want to thank the audience that brought up their comments today, and those who submitted their writing as well. And there's more, and we look forward to connecting with you all. Thank you.
All right, the next chapter will be coming up soon. Yeah. All right, everyone, thank you so much. If there's no other business to come before us, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Got it, second. Motion to adjourn and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, you guys, thank you. Scott, blessings on your new position.
Thank you. Thank you all for the kind words. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary Schmidt, for being here.
Thanks, Scott.
Sandra.
And thanks all of you. We'll see you in the next incarnations.
Yeah, thanks, Al.
Good luck, Scott.
Thank you.